7 o'clock, and we are here except for Trustee Quinn. Will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here's Trustee Quinn. Hello.
Good evening.
Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Yes. I would be fine with moving the adjournment up. However, we'll get through this before we watch the World Series. I saw that.
Now we know it's important.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Item 3, consent agenda. Approve the Board of Trustees minutes for October 18th. Bring into record the approved minutes from the PC for October 11th. And approve the bills payable run from October 19th through November 1st in the amount of $12,445.65.
Move approval as submitted. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. 4, new business. This is, that first item is the resolution 2016-1101A, appointment of Richard Williams as the CAC rep for the PPRTA for Green Mountain Falls. I have to get to that page. Richard Williams, or Reb as he's known here, would like to be our representative on the Citizens Advisory Committee for Pikes Peak Regional Transportation Authority. So I will read this resolution. Whereas the town of Green Mountain Falls has an agreement with Pikes Peak Regional Transportation Authority to have 2 representatives from the town on the authority's Citizens Advisory Committee, and whereas Richard Williams has been, have you changed this? Has been one of the representatives from El Paso County, Green Mountain Falls, on this committee. And whereas Richard Williams' term on this committee has expired, but he has expressed an interest in being reappointed. And whereas the Board of Trustees believes that it is in the town's interest to reappoint Richard Williams to the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Pikes Peak Regional Transportation Authority, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, that Richard Williams is reappointed as one of the town's representatives on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Pikes Peak Regional Transportation Authority, and be it further resolved that this reappointment will be effective immediately. Introduced, resolved, and passed at the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls on this first day of November 2016. The only change is he hasn't been a representative from Green Mountain Falls. He's been a representative from El Paso County.
I would move approval, and if there's a second for discussion.
I would second that.
I would strongly encourage us to appoint Mr. Williams. He's been a strong advocate and very involved in the Citizens Advisory Committee for the RTA, and this is a unique opportunity for Green Mountain Falls to have a representative that has knowledge and is coming in to help represent the town and our interests. And it's the role of the Citizens Advisory Committee to us as board members at the PPRTA is vital, because they look very closely at basically the same agenda that we review and add comments from the perspective of the citizens and really help protect the interests of the voters. They were initially passed and then overwhelmingly approved a reauthorization of the RTA back a few years ago.
Or do you have any questions either of Tyler or Mr. Williams?
Do you wish to have a rebuttal?
If you wish to run away now, it's your chance.
Would you like a little brief history?
Please.
I'm a former general contractor in both Windvista, Salida, Wichita, and have worked all of the western half of the United States and Pacific Rim. although it was highway heavy. I've been on the El Paso County Highway Advisory Committee for 7 years. I'm serving currently as the chair of that particular committee. I'm also the vice chair for the BPRTA CAC. And yeah, we run interference with the board. That's the best way to put it, because our meetings typically are 2.5 hours plus, and fortunately for the board, they get to spend 45 minutes just reviewing what we've done. And so it's really been a pleasure. I have always served only for the county. I have been asked to do something for the city, and I refuse. I live in the county, and I recognize the rural parts of it. I appreciate this opportunity very much, because I was also the chair of the Citizens Budget and Oversight Committee for the county for 68 years that we existed. So I have a pretty good understanding, and I appreciate the opportunity you offer. I will do my best to represent not just the county, but also Green Mountain Falls. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer you. I guess 60 years or so in the highway and heavy business, I tell a lot of stories.
Board?
Excuse me, Mayor, did the board want to amend the resolution in the second whereas to reflect that Mr. Williams has been a representative from El Paso County?
Yes,
rather than
please.
Green Mountain Falls?
Yes, please.
Could I make a recommendation, Mike, but instead of reappoint Harry's been just put down a point because it's not a reappointment anyway.
Excellent.
Okay. Yep. Cameron's marked that up for you.
It's in 3 locations.
So if you want that back, he's got it going on. All right, thank you. Board, is there any further discussion? All those in favor of this appointment, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. This is item C, the Tree Lighting Festival Special Event Permit Application. And Brett is not here. I assume, Mike, you will be presenting that?
Yes. Mr. Bratton, for his ACLU, or ACL, ACLU, boy, not you. Everybody has a right. Anyway, you fell and so he came present. At the last meeting, we presented a plan, and basically we're here to get a permit, a use permit. The outlets will be done by a professional electrician, and I guess all the paperwork has already been submitted. Am I correct, Renee?
You did. I have a special event permit application which the board has in their packet. And a letter from you as the president of the chamber, as well as a drawing.
I believe the regular permit fee is $100. $100 for 1 hour's use. We're looking at probably about 45 minutes. Right now, the scheduling is starting at the Little Beaver Lodge. There'll be 2 trees lit there, and over to the Outlook Lodge, 2 trees there. Maybe 1 tree lit between the Outlook and then the Green Box Pavilion, where they're expecting to light between 10 and 12 lights, and then finally we'll light our tree, which is a spruce, and that I believe will be about 45 minutes there. We're hoping to have a small children's choir to sing. If that hasn't been finalized, but at that point we'll also serve hot chocolate and hot ice cider.
Ward, do you have any questions on this?
Yeah, how's the electrical power lights come on?
There'll be there's a circuit breaker on the power, or on the stub, that just is a one push.
Okay, well, I almost see these as two separate things. At the planning commission, they said that it wasn't in their purview to, approve electrical permit and that the board needed to. And so an event, although it goes together with this electrical permit, I think, board, we need to discuss, any sort of amendment in the park of this sort of permanent nature.
It seems, it seems unusual to me to grant a permittee the right to put their own electrical infrastructure underground in the park. If the request is to hang lights on the tree, it seems like the application should be for the right to hang lights in the tree and allow our public works staff to determine the best way to meet the applicant's needs with infrastructure.
To further differentiate this, we want to be careful that we are not issuing a permit to do electrical work. We are authorizing someone to either, as Cameron has outlined, permission to light a tree, and either the town provides power to that with permitted licensed contractor, or the party that's petitioned us to have that area done with our permission can have that done as well. But with our IGA with regional building, it's not appropriate for us to be, oversight of the electrical work or the quality there. And we're just saying, yeah, we need power to a tree so that this event can take place. I think that it makes sense for us as a board to say, yeah, we want to see this event come together. We need power to a tree, and either it's our responsibility or their responsibility or their dollar, but that should be outlined. But I think it's a permission to make it happen, and the where that line falls on that. So strong as to which way it should happen.
I pulled Article 3 from Section 18 about revocable permits when I saw this on the agenda, because it seems like whether it's above ground or underground or whatever, either way, it seems like a revocable permit application, separate from the special event permit, which can discuss separately. But for example, 2 is highlighted the appropriate text here. If I can find what I'm looking for. Revocable permit for spaces above the surface of public property for uses in the public interest. Also related to devices being installed, like a lighting string. So the code covers this as a revocable permit application and also has insurance requirements on the permittees, make sure the tree isn't burned down, things like that.
See, if the tree burns down, I'll put an artificial Wi-Fi for you won't be able to tell.
Mac?
I'd like to be assured that the town of Greenmount Falls will bear no cost for whatever improvements are done and for whatever fees the electrical department should charge for the electricity, and that the contractor is licensed with the town.
Yeah, and I think, well, let's cover the electric first and go to the permit.
Just use an extension cord.
Yes, that's going to be my comeback to this, is that we need 4 extension cords then to go from the stub over to the tree, unless you want to go forward with what we've proposed. That will amount to, I think they're 12 feet apiece. So 4 12-foot long extensions capable of carrying 12 amps apiece. Is what we required. What we proposed was a box that would allow circuit breaker inside of it, the wires coming from the existing stub carrying the appropriate current that We didn't have to bury. I personally didn't like the idea of adding another, buried conduit over there. But, so that's an alternative. We went down to regional. I don't know the exact results. They just had a question mark. Well, that's just a box with 4 extension cords coming out in a circuit breaker. So there was not an approval or disapproval at that point. The amount of power, we're more than happy to pay for the amount of power, which I calculate to be $7 for the period. You know, the wattage of the bulbs, and then I would more than happy to cover that.
$7 for the 30 days or whatever it is?
That's great times time, equals amount.
Is there a meter charge by the city to put a meter in where the service comes in to service that function? Nobody does this stuff for free. So, you know, there's a lot of big hearts out there, but the city of Colorado Springs Utility Department is not one of them. They like to get paid for the things that they do. So if there's not a circuit there now, then they're gonna have to provide one. And that, there's a meter charge, there's a fees for the use of the power. And then there's a disconnect when they take the meter away. I don't know that you're gonna wanna leave that meter sitting there year round for a 1 month function.
Is that box there live now?
There, yes, the box is always live. It's the same box that you use at the fountain and at the land office. That meter is live, as far as, in my experience, it has been live all year round. It's the one that was input by the swings originally. It's a 200 amp circuit, of which 100 amps is available in the 4 plug.
If you're gonna run an extension cord from that box to whatever tree it is.
Right.
Whose insurance pays for, who's responsible for somebody that gets hurt?
That
Or
was
somebody vandalizing that extension cord?
the next question.
That,
Well, I think we have 2 different issues going here, and that is a question that I would ask with the special event permit application if we are going to be named as the additional insured.
So I would think, the way I read the special event permit is it's not for the 30 days for the lighting. The special event is the
The festival only.
the 1 day of the lighting ceremony.
Okay.
And separately, use of the tree for 30 days and potentially power or however the infrastructure works out.
Okay,
and if the board wants, we could light the tree once, turn it off, and then we'll just have the other people have their lighted trees. I think as trying to promote the town and the community, I would think that the board would enjoy the possibility of having the tree completely lit, but that's not going to stop the private factors or private interests from having their
yeah,
trees
and
lit.
that's neither here nor there.
What's the time frame that's anticipated for the end of the lighting?
End of lighting. See,
Mostly on the private properties, not so much on the town property.
on the town property, it's going to be about 45 minutes, and it's the last tree that's going to be lit. So
I was thinking how many months, how many
months? They're going to go for 30 days, the private. So,
okay.
so
So I see that we have maybe 3 issues. The first being running electric power and conduit or not. The second, the special events permit for the lighting ceremony. And we do have a discussion here about if we're going to keep this lit for a month.
So you want to do it in that order?
Let's do it in that order.
What was the first one?
First one is what does the board feel about running underground conduiting in the park to another power stub?
And I would suggest we shouldn't, we have a professional staff who is in charge of the infrastructure in town. I would like RJ to spend time with chamber representatives to figure out what is the ask and what is the need and what is the cost that Public Works will have to incur to make it happen. And then go through the traditional local permit process, starting the planning commission on next Tuesday.
Additionally, I'd add that it needs to be as fit into the setting of the park as possible, so that we're not disrupting the atmosphere and the appearance of the park, and it needs to be as discreet as possible.
Along with that, we need to be cognizant of irrigation and future irrigation. Okay, so I think that's our first step when it comes to running an electrical extension.
So,
It's,
are you good to connect
Yes.
with him later and work out those details for a submittal? Okay.
so the second item on this list then would be the special event permit application. I would reiterate my question, if we go forward with this, will we be named as additional insured?
I'm very much in favor of it. I think it's a good way to promote the town, and I think the town should participate wholeheartedly by allowing this permission. And even to the extent that I think the minimal costs of running the lighting for the tree that someone else has provided in the park, I don't think it's going to break our budget and contribute to that unless there's compensation coming our way. So,
To that end, there is a fee involved with the special event. And it looks like it would be $100, even though it says 2-hour minimum, $100 and the deposit. Or do you have any discussion about that cost? All right, so
Can I ask, the special events permit, you require a rider or the town to be named as a additional insured for the special events? What about the 30 days that the tree's lit?
we'll get to that one in the next question.
Because there can be liability involved.
Absolutely. So I think for the permit, we are named as the additional insured for this
What,
event.
I would wonder if a special event permit is actually required for 75 people to assemble in the park to look at a tree.
I think the perhaps larger question is there walking on the street from place to place to place? If you have an event permit, then does that give them more structure, people more notification that this will be taking place from private to public?
additionally, I think the granting a special event permit for an event like this makes the town aware and people aware that something's happening that's particular and that we have approved and know that it's going to be happening. And so if there's a disruptive event that was trying to compete with this, we could have some grounds to say, no, this is a special event permit, and this is something that has gone before the board.
Makes sense.
All right. So this is the second item. This is the special event permit application. Tyler, are you gonna make a motion on that?
Apparently,
Apparently, because you talked to us about it.
I move approval of the special event permit.
Second.
This permit is for what now?
This is for the
45
lighting.
minutes?
Yep, the lighting ceremony on November 26th.
First annual tree lighting festival.
Festivus.
Not Andrew's kids.
We have a motion and a second. As this is part of the event application. And there has been discussion of it fee of $100. Can we make that part of the motion?
That's the established fees.
That's the fee. Board, is there any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That takes us to the third question of this, and that, board, is, what do we do with leaving this lit for 30 days in the park? And will the chamber provide us as additional insured?
Yes, we will.
So, if this goes through a revocable permit process for the lights and the electrical, additional insurance, being an additional insured is a requirement of the permitting code.
Right.
That's section 1863.
I would suggest, since we don't know the, outcome of what it's gonna be to run electric in the park, either with, extension cords or with a stub, and wait and see what is recommended at planning commission. It will still give us time at the next meeting. I don't know where the calendar went.
Planning commission meets on the 8th,
And we
and
meet
the
on,
board meets on the 15th.
we meet on the 15th. It would still give us time to decide, for the 30 days post 26.
Would that still allow for the special use or revocable permit process to take place? I don't remember the requirements for going through the process. I wonder if there's notification or posting or something like that that we run into calendar issues.
I don't remember seeing any posting or hearing requirements when I read through this. The application for permit shall be filed with the clerk or with the planning commission. And then costs, expiration date, permits expire on December 31st and are renewable unless marked non-renewable. And as far as process is concerned, yeah, I don't see any mention of a hearing or standard order notification type requirement.
That'd be my concern, is burdening this process with excessive, not excessive, but notification or public notice.
The persons desiring a permit shall submit with the application detailed plans, including but not limited to the exact location, size, dimensions, and access to the above-ground device. And the permittee shall pay for the construction and installation of any device or structure above the surface, and shall pay all costs attendant on removing the device. Construction or installation of the device or structure above the surface of public property shall be subject to the direction of the planning commission or its designated representative. Talks about what might be issued for, and then all permittees. That's for a grandfather clause. So yeah, and then it may be revoked as the board deems.
So, with that being said, we do need to put this in front of planning commission after you talk.
Right.
Then we can revisit the, we're going to keep this lit for 30 days.
No, as a separate thing, since the chamber's in charge of promoting the town, my questions are there any other things that the town wants to decorate so that I can maybe go to the newspapers and the like to have us promoted, or have run through town taking pictures or whatever to promote it. So that's a happy, wonderful gingerbread town with, Christmas decorations. Maybe have to bribe her, I'm not really sure, but after all, we're trying to promote a happy, wonderful town, and so if you want to decorate for garlands around something.
Well, the gazebo, of course, will be done, and
Right.
the land title building.
Right.
For historical precedence.
And the town hall?
I don't know.
Renee will do that.
Renee has nothing else to do.
Sure.
I would just throw out there, if, I know there's a lot of able-bodied volunteers who like to beautify the town, but just ask that they coordinate with RJ, to make sure there's no, and just from a coordination standpoint, a volunteer effort. and waivers and rosters, things like that. So we can recognize their hours that they put in for us.
Yes.
And so when they do come and do this, we do need to have the volunteer roster for insurance purposes.
Which brings into another point. Just possibility the board would consider not hiring, but providing a position of a volunteer coordinator to, I mean, the chamber does, I don't know, it's basically doing almost all of the events, and a volunteer coordinator could allow greater coordination and use of all those people that are willing to volunteer. And as Cameron said, there's a lot of people that would like to volunteer, but have felt like they've been not ostracized, but they don't know who to go to.
I would say hold that thought for another agenda item later in tonight's agenda, which is around strategic plan and discussions.
Okay. All right, I thank you very much.
Additionally, a lot of work has gone into thinking about this, planning for this. If there was dollar amounts for people to contribute to expand the efforts for, each additional tree is X dollars or something to provide the lighting or
Right.
the labor to install. There might be interested people who want to see that expanded as well, so it certainly wouldn't hurt to get those numbers publicized. And I'm thinking it's almost like the sponsored bench program where you say, if you have so many dollars, we can light one more tree. If you have so many more dollars, we can light two more, whatever.
Take the joker. Basically, I think that's there should be a flyer put up tomorrow. I'll try to include the cost of the trees in that. If not, then I'll do an update.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll just add one more thing. Assuming you go through the revocable process and those are renewable, this could be a kind of a one-time paying where it becomes an annual event that the chamber sponsors with a renewing permit.
And to that end, you probably want to broaden it beyond just that one
The one
tree.
tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trees in parks.
Yes.
Okay. Item 5, old business, is the fee schedule. The majority of this fee schedule has been in place for some time, and the reason I brought it again onto this agenda is we discussed earlier, and I think we need to look at sending a letter to the people who use our parks, who rent our parks, such as the Thin Air Car Show, and send it now so they know in the summer that, no, we have a fee, this is what the fee is. It's not really subject to change, and I think it's fair to them and it's fair to their planning. We just need to make a list of the people that have done these special events in the summer and make sure that they're getting the same and proper notification.
Are we entertaining making changes or just the notification to pass?
I'm just opening it up for discussion. I'm okay with the fees as they are. But every time we have somebody bring a permit before the board, we go up and down and back and forth. And I think this would make it easier for us and it would make it very clear that there are indeed fees. I've said before, and I'm still open for discussion, I'd like to see the fee waived for the school, but I'd like to see it, the appropriate fees be in place for everyone else.
I can see the lodging. What's that name? The lodging, excuse me. The lodging fees and applications fees.
See a special use
Special use.
on page,
permits.
use bottom of page 2.
We're looking at them.
So we're looking at special event permit fees.
16, 7, 12, 17.
Oh,
There's a few fees that I don't see on here.
thank you.
I know the offenses for open burning were set by ordinance 2 or 3 years ago. I don't see those on here. That's been on the news a lot with the stages and the restrictions. It might be good to put the fines right on the notices. And then And then I think, I want to say it was last year, there was a new ordinance mimicking the state code for excessive noise, which has its own fee schedule. Or I don't know if those fees were actually set. No restrictions were put in place.
I need to revisit those. Board, is there any objection to having letters sent to our traditional park users regarding these special event permit fees?
No, I think it's a great idea. In fact, Ben at our car show said that would be great.
Okay.
No, ahead of time.
Okay, so Renee, if you would just look on our old calendar and see who has rented the park, so we can get those letters sent. It looks like the non-resident fee is $500 a day for using the open space and the use of the right of way.
Maybe while we're talking about fees, the business license that is for all the plumber to come up and do the work, $50 here, $50 there. I would be in favor of doing away with that, which is some money. It's $11,000 worth of revenue, but it's money that the citizens pay anyway, because if you have the plumber come up, they pay the $50, they go through the hassle of paying $50, and then it's just gonna get tacked on to the sales call anyway.
So are you talking about people who just come in or talking about businesses who are also based here?
Home occupation businesses.
So home occupation businesses, you would still have a business license fee?
Well, if they would be paying sales tax or whatever that they're doing their business out of anyway, but I'm thinking as a business license, the majority of our business licenses are not from people that are home-based. 287 business licenses, and of that, a majority are home-based.
To be clear, the requirement to obtain a license is by ordinance in the code. There's two ways we could approach this. We could adopt an ordinance to change the requirement for who gets licensed to address your concerns, or we could address the fee side where you still have to obtain a license, but it's at no cost or minimal cost. Two different approaches to that.
So before we get into the logistics of how, throw it out there, what are y'all's thoughts on the thought of if we did away with that line item completely?
I am very interested in addressing the issue. I'm not sure that eliminating it is the best option, but I would like us as a board to talk about it and address it. Because I too feel that it's burdensome and not the best way to do that. It's burdensome on the staff and burdensome on homeowners. But I think there might be some middle ground, and there are some areas that we should be collecting some business licenses. And I'm not sure totally eliminating is the right answer, but I think it is appropriate for us to put on the agenda to look at that ordinance to rework that.
Sounds like a motion. Set that for a workshop.
Set that for a workshop. Mac, do you have something?
Yeah, I don't mean to be disagreeing with everything that comes up, but the point is that the $50 license fee to do business in Green Mountain Falls is relatively innocuous. If somebody comes up from Colorado Springs and gets licensed in Green Mountain Falls, my guess is, and if they're a decent businessman and a responsible contractor, they don't pass that fee, that 100% of that fee on to the person who called them up. That doesn't happen. A responsible contractor figures those fees into his rates every year. So, I do business in Manitou Springs, in Cripple Creek, in Woodland Park, Green Mountain Falls. I have licenses to do business in all those. and I don't charge, just because somebody called me from Woodland Park, and it's the only job I've gotten so far this year in Woodland Park, I don't charge the guy $150 for doing a job in Woodland Park. It gets passed, it gets filtered over all of my clients for the whole year. So, you know, to argue that the poor Fremont Falls resident's gonna get skinned for $50 every time they call somebody who doesn't do business every day in Fremont Falls is absurd.
Do you think, just a question, as a business owner, that it's beneficial to you to be able to say, I have a license in these
Frankly,
different places?
In the past, I have gotten numerous calls from people in Green Mountain Falls and from outside of Green Mountain Falls who had come to town hall and asked if they were required to have a licensed contractor, and were given a list of licensed contractors to choose from. So it was very beneficial for me to pay my $50 to get licensed in Green Mountain Falls, because the list is available to anybody who walks through the door or goes online. So there are numerous licensed contractors that get business by that means. So, you know, to say that the poor guy in Green Mountain Falls is gonna have to pay for some plumber's business license is just false.
Well, I think this will make for an interesting discussion. Yes, Jeannie?
I'm sorry. The other thing is, I use the businesses, like, I'll call up town hall and I want my carpets cleaned. I go to town hall to say, what carpet cleaning people have business licenses in town? And that way, that's a reputable company. Instead of going to ABC company outside of town, you don't have to get a business license to work here. How do I know if that's a reputable place? The town hall has already done that kind of work. And a lot of people call town hall for plumbers, electricians, carpet cleaners, and it's a way of sort of saying, this is a good company.
Along with the business license, the licensee has to provide proof of insurance. So, and, you know, sad to say, there's a lot of jackleg contractors out there who don't get insured, and they skin people on a daily basis, and they don't have insurance. So there's another backup to that.
Okay, well, I think this is gonna be a good conversation for a workshop, not for today, but I think this brings up a lot of interesting conversation down the road, but not too far down the road. Mike?
And speaking for the chamber, we've just put out our business directory, and I'm willing to, and I think that like, put an asterisk that says licensed in Green Mountain Falls, since the town of Green Mountain Falls is a member of the chamber as well. That's an added thing that will maybe Renee can say, call the chamber, I'm busy. You know, but
All right.
Question for staff, when would renewal notices go out for 2017 business licenses?
I'm looking to start sending in November, this month.
So we need to set that sooner rather than later.
Well, ordinance is a long process.
Yeah.
I would not aim to change this in cycle for the 17.
Okay, well,
Cycle. That's nice, but I think it's too rushed.
well, maybe after the first year, you know, when we don't have anything else to do.
Sounds good.
And just to add to that, I'm looking to do a mass email to the email addresses that we have, as opposed to mailing all of them out this year to save on postage.
I think that's just fine.
And then we'll mail to those that we don't have email addresses for.
Okay. And you'll touch base with me about the summer people that we're sending fee letters to.
And as you go through that process, I think it would be helpful for our conversation to understand the amount of effort that it takes the municipality to handle the permits. You know, how much time is it taking, how much research is taking, how much, what's going into our maintaining the business license.
I'd also like to have an idea of what exactly the license does for the town and what's being checked, if it has any value.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the workshop, so I'd like to recess the regular meeting. 7:45, open a workshop. This is again discussing the repealing of ordinance 10201B1 and replaced with ordinance 1101 2016A, and ordinance amending the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code concerning loitering. This was on the advice of the ACLU that we amend our ordinance. We have read this, but I will read what is being stricken from the ordinance itself. We will no longer have in there item 1, which is loitering for the purpose of begging. In the next item, it will still be a petty offense, loitering for the purpose of unlawful gambling with cards or dice. It strikes or other gambling paraphernalia. The next item is still illegal to loiter for the purpose of engaging or soliciting another person to engage in prostitution. However, according to the attorney, we will strike or deviate sexual intercourse because that is too vague.
On that, did you get clarification on the also gambling?
Again, because it's too vague. It's something that is not prosecutable because it is vague. Those are really,
You could do,
It's not defined in the code, the term.
So-
permitted by our code.
yeah,
Instead of a shell game.
Yeah, instead of a shell game.
This is Colorado, not
Cup
Canada.
game. I'm just thinking of all the great gambling opportunities.
yeah, sorry, Cripple Creek, we're so much closer
We can't do games, we can't do dice or cards.
because those are specific. It probably should,
Tools and games of unlawful gambling.
it should probably just say loiters for the purpose of unlawful gambling, period.
Yeah.
So, but this is how the attorney wrote it from Sursa, and I would just tend to say, if that's what Sursa wants, I'm okay with it. So it is the workshop.
If we are going back and forth with that attorney and curious about continuing, like the mayor suggested, with striking the with cards or dice and just making it into unlawful gambling. Because it seems like gambling is not undefined. I mean, if you're wagering, and I'm sure there's a solid definition of gambling.
Bookie and
So I think it's the,
State statute that we can refer to in it as far as what unlawful gambling is?
I'm guessing so.
I'm guessing there would be, I mean, I think we could add that into the language.
That you don't know.
Just think it's awkward to have such specificity of cards and dice,
Right.
not,
I would think
yeah,
that
thank you.
state statute would prevail.
so you would want to change that to say loiters for the purpose of unlawful gambling according to state, to CRS, whatever the code is.
I would just leave it as gambling, and then if
Okay,
we do need to do a citation for a definition, I would push back on the attorney to give us some advice on that. Just seems a little funky to have those two.
I was
Objects.
looking, we have the letter of explanation that he sent that you guys had in your packet. Last time, I was looking to see what they said.
I just remember why that one portion was stricken. I don't remember
remember seeing
why
that.
that was left.
Well, if that's too vague, the other path is too specific.
Right.
They used to balance each other out, and now they don't.
Renee, would you touch base again with that attorney and just ask them to strike,
If we can,
if
they
we can
recommend.
strike cards and dice? Oh, there's word, no.
Do you want to see this letter of explanation one? Okay.
I don't think it says anything really different. They just took that out, didn't they?
So procedurally, we'll get some further advice from the associate attorney. What is the
Okay.
next step on this to set this matter for a hearing and publish notice of the hearing?
Yes.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, wait a minute, you gotta repeat it.
Okay, so what we're doing is we're asking if you will get a little if you or Mr. Peck will get a little further, information, if we can strike with cards or dice.
Okay,
But the motion, as I understand it, is, we will go ahead and if that's amended that way or not, we will publish it and,
Well,
proceed with.
it's just the notice of the hearing that gets published, not the
Right, and
text
then-
of the ordinance.
Right, we'll publish the notice and have the public hearing at the next meeting. There was a motion in the second.
I think we should take out gambling,
Oh.
just anything, just put anything unlawful. We don't want them loitering for
But
anything.
before we need to make a motion, we have to shut the workshop.
Oh,
Oh, you know. So we're going to recess that
You
workshop?
must have mumbled that.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. So we are in our regular meeting, and there was, I just heard a motion.
Second.
Board, any further discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
So we will proceed with publishing the notice and having a public hearing. I will recess this meeting and I will start, or open the workshop for finalizing the 2017 budget.
So, Mayor, we've been kind of working towards transitioning over from Mr. Pick helping put together the budget to quite the opposite, to where Mr. Pick's gonna be putting together the budget. But I think that we, based off of the last meeting, are still in good shape.
Yeah, and from a process standpoint, the requirement would be we would publish a notice probably November 23rd of the budget public hearing, which will occur on the first meeting in December, December 6th, at which time we would, the board would conduct a public hearing, make any changes to the budget, adopt the budget, and then adopt the mill levy, the same meeting, or second meeting. So we're in good shape, just process-wise.
so we don't really have much update. Trustee Butts and I finalized the things that were in progress, and we've formally transitioned that over to Mr. Pick to be the lead on the remaining budget process with support.
And I'll make a plan to make a presentation at the December 6th meeting to kind of reinforce what's in the budget. And then, of course, as I said, the public has an opportunity to be heard.
Do you want to say anything about the crafting of a budget message as opposed to this big document full of thousands of numbers?
Yeah, the budget message is really a narrative of what's in the budget. And whereas, like I said, we've got a lot of little bitty numbers now. And so the idea is to really kind of highlight what's in the budget and explain a little bit about maybe some of the assumptions that went into it and some other things like that. It'll be a little bit more difficult this year because maybe it's the first time it's been done, but in subsequent years, it's usually easy to just kind of pick up on that and on that analysis and then, build on that for future years.
All right. This is a workshop.
Are you aware, do you have to have your budget balanced? And
Yes.
does it have to be submitted by December 15th?
Yes.
Same staff?
Well, December 31st, I believe, it needs to be submitted to the state.
When?
December 31st.
Okay,
December
so give it to
15th
the
is when the
state.
mill levy has to be certified.
Well, the mill levy has to go with the balanced budget, but the county is required statutorily to do it the 15th, by the 15th. I know we literally had to drive to Denver to get it done. And I'm just making that point because of your timing of your meetings and whatnot, plus the fact that we have to deal with the holiday season.
So like I said, one of the differences I think may be that the board has adopted or has changed the rules so that instead of a two-step process, adopting it by ordinance requires 2 hearings. They've changed the process here for us so that it's a 1 hearing process or a 1 reading process, which can take place on December 6th.
And originally, when we had the budget calendar, the second meeting in November, we were going to look to pass it, but the mill levy numbers won't be ready until after that meeting, so that's why the December 6th change.
Are there any further comments? Well, I will adjourn the workshop then. And we'll look forward to seeing that budget. Item 6 is public input for items not listed on the agenda. If someone has something they would like to add, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Mac Control, 10840 Road Street. I want to commend the maintenance department for doing a great job on the roads. They look as good today as they have looked they look better than they've looked in years. I'm happy to say that in the short time that Mr. Beer's been here, the quality has been quite a turn. And I for one appreciate it. The other thing is that today on Grandview, the city of Colorado Springs started some repair work, and they got the road closed. And my water pressure is what I would consider pretty much non-existent. I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing.
I was gonna ask you about that after the meeting.
And I would appreciate it if somebody from the board level, either Mr. Pick or the mayor, would call the city of Colorado Springs. I'm getting a little tired of the fact that Green Mountain Falls gets treated like the red-headed stepchild of every other organization in the state. And I'd like for somebody to be able to ask them and get an answer. Why is the water pressure half of what it was yesterday? It's never been great, but it's a lot less than, I can't even get the sprayer to work on the faucet in the kitchen because there's just not enough pressure to go for the water to diffuse into the sprayer. It doesn't come out.
So is that utilities up there?
It's the Colorado Springs Water Department.
Is it something they're doing that's causing?
They're doing some, and I understand that, they're making repairs, but, they don't have to inconvenience the entire north side of Green Mountain Falls to make a repair in the road. And I understand that they're doing their best, but it would have been nice to get, they knew they were coming here last week or the week before, could have told us. Would be nice to be notified that they're gonna do a major repair that's gonna change the water pressure in one whole part of the town for a day or two, or who knows? And that's the other thing. Who knows how long they're gonna be there? So it would be nice for us to know what is going on.
Sure.
Thank you.
To address that, I've tried to contact Colorado Springs Utilities already this evening. Have a contact with them about a previous issue we had over on Mountain. Came in on Monday morning, had the road closed signs up there, obvious water damage to the ditches. So I've worked with Nick down there, and hopefully he will be more preemptive.
Well, the city of Colorado Springs considers themselves the center of the known universe. And so they don't, my assumption is that they don't feel like they have to notify anybody. I think that's wrong. And, maybe I'm just nuts, but I think that's wrong. It would be nice to notify the community that you're screwing up, that you're gonna screw it up, and that you're gonna fix it.
So anyway, I'm just saying to address that, I am trying to establish a working relationship with
Well, I
CSU.
think you'll find out that Colorado Springs treats the outlying communities that are not part of the city of Colorado Springs is pretty much the
Pain in the butt.
the poor, just the poor relatives. And frankly, when you're paying half again as much as the residents of Colorado Springs for water that really doesn't come out of the faucet the way it should, I think you have a beef. So just so you know.
Thank you for the compliment also.
You could be with Cascade.
All right, there's no further public input. Item 7 is correspondence. That's the PC draft minutes from October 25th. We'll have a look at those for the next meeting. And item 8 is reports. Mr. Pick, why don't you start? You have the most.
Okay, I'll do that. I'm gonna come over to the podium. I know that's what you prefer, so I prefer it too. The first thing I wanted to mention was that, and I realize I'm the only thing standing between you guys and the World Series, and I'm standing, I saw the World Series as well, so I'll hold that. First thing is, you wanted me to address the question of supervision with the transition between an interim town manager and then the board and the liaison system. So what I'm suggesting is that effective tomorrow, that we would transition supervision of the town employees to myself as interim town manager. And I also would propose, because I know that there might be perhaps some drop in communication or whatever, that beginning with December, that we would, all the town, basically employees at this point, town manager, clerk, the deputy town clerk, and the public works supervisor, and then subsequently town marshal, as soon as we can get that position filled, would all make monthly reports to the board. Come to the meeting, stand here and make monthly reports to you, so that you'll get a briefing on what's been going on, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. So that was the first item that I wanted to report.
Okay?
Good.
That sounds good.
The second one is one that I mentioned during my interview process, and that was the idea of having a strategic planning session, which would include the board. My proposal also would be that it would include the town employees. To give us an opportunity to kind of sit back, away from the regular board meetings, and talk a little bit about what the strategic vision is for the town. Now, realize that we're in a transition period, so I'll be here for another 5 months, and then, of course, we'll be hopefully filling the town manager position, and then the time frame I'm looking at is my remaining time here, plus then maybe 6 months into a town manager's position or term. But the idea would be to talk a little bit, to develop strategic vision, to kind of set forth what the objectives are for the board, for the town, for that period of time. I listed, as a result of the discussions I had, I met with each one of them individually. As a result of those discussions, I came up with the list of items that you see here on this memo, but it's not intended to be exclusive. I mean, it should be an opportunity to discuss anything that the board wants to discuss. The other thing I do want to point out is that because of the open meetings law, this meeting would be open to the public and it would be open to the press, so that it's not a closed meeting of any kind. But it does give an opportunity to sit down, maybe at a table, wherever we can find a good venue for it, and just kind of talk. So, and I'm thinking, because I'm thinking of a half day, may want to talk about a full day, but I'm thinking of a half day, and possibly having it at a different venue than this meeting room here. Not that there's anything wrong with the meeting here, but it does give us an opportunity to kind of get away from the normal routine. So if the board's okay with that, what I'd like to do, not tonight, but immediately begin working with you on setting a date, possibly on a Saturday. It might work out best to be on a Saturday because I know myself, all of you will.
Okay,
Okay?
sounds good.
And finally, I just wanted to request that the board consider appropriating, or not appropriating, but allowing us to use some of the money that's in the budget this year to begin a replacement schedule for the computers. We have, I think, 10 computers, and they've all got some age on them to various degrees. And, you know, rather than waiting until they all break, and then we've got to replace them all at the same time, we're already having some issues with some of the computers. So what I would suggest is that we we set a replacement schedule for this year, replace 3 computers, next year 3, and then the year after that 3, and then start a 5-year replacement schedule, which I think is pretty much kind of standard, and you avoid getting into machines that are, and software, everything's way out of date and all that. So if that, and I'm anticipating that that would be a cost of about $1,000 per unit. So we would be talking about $3,000 this year. We do have $8,000 in the budget for capital outlay that has not yet been used. I would ask that the council use $3,000 of that money, and then $5,000 would then be available to be moved into next year's budget.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Mike?
Was this computer here included in those 10?
I think it was. I think we were trying, there's a little bit of flex as to whether we had 10 or 11, but I think it was.
So from a planning perspective, you'd put the 3 new ones in the desks that need them most, and then trickle down the remaining computers and get rid of the worst 3?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, board, do you have any questions? Okay.
Is that a motion item or?
I think that should be a motion since it's
I
a,
think we have several things to go back to this first one.
Yes.
But well, we're right here at the computer, so I would move to approve the spending of funds as he laid out for computers this year. And I believe we've got it in the plan for kind of moving forward in capital expenditure.
Good. Good. For 1 second. Board, any further discussion?
Can we guarantee 3,000? I mean, the cost at 3,000? I mean, have you looked into specific pricing?
I did talk with Scott Sanders about this, and based on kind of a rump evaluation, I didn't get a detailed list of our cost estimate, but we can do that. And if it looks like it's going to, once we actually get into the procurement process, it looks like it's going to be more than $1,000. I'll advise the board.
That's great. I'm just thinking that you need kind of a plus 10%.
Yeah.
The way things go now, so that would be fun.
All right. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Mike, what do you have?
And if we go back to the first one, I move to transition the supervisory role to pick beginning tomorrow, with the exception of the higher fire. I think that should remain with the board for the time being as he works through.
Yeah, this was just affecting supervision, not the hiring fire authority.
Okay, I would second that. Board, any further discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
On the part-time employees, like RJ has, would they report, would you directly supervise them, or would you supervise RJ, and RJ would do things like sign their time cards?
They would, part-time employees would report through RJ to me, yeah. Or RJ would actually report to me. I have to look specifically at the, I'm sorry, I'd have to look specifically at whether there's anything at all written down anywhere that talks about who actually signs the time cards. But it certainly would be our intention that instead of the board members signing time cards, it would either be me or a supervisor like RJ or a marshal.
And supervision including directing of
Yes.
8 activities.
Right.
All right, any further questions?
Hold on 1 second.
I'm just trying to figure out, because you are the acting clerk and treasurer,
Manager, and treasurer.
Right.
Treasurer, yes.
Interim, yes.
so the board would be holding supervision of just your position as far as the clerk and the treasurer?
The board would be supervising me, that's correct. And then I would be supervising the deputy town clerk, public works supervisor, and the marshal.
And while I think in practice, we need to effect this change immediately, I think, I fear that we probably need to touch base with Matt to see how we reconcile our existing personnel policies and ordinances such that in this interim period or what have you, we have solid ground such that if there's a problem, it's not just this and this board's vote and direction to you, but
That's a good
we
point.
need to figure, because what's written down and what is in place, both in ordinance and in policy, conflicts with this, and it's probably not good standing for this board to just arbitrarily conflict those things. So I think my suggestion is in practice, authorize Mr. Pick to move forward as he's said, but then in the immediate future, figure out with Matt how we handle this.
And I believe personnel policies are on your long list of
They are.
things to
Yeah,
finalize.
well, that's kind of in the transition.
Are they done yet?
Jeez. Okay. All right, so we got a motion and a second, and I think the motion has been made clear that this is for the practical purposes. Are there any further questions? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And we will be working on the strategic planning session. So move forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board, I have a very short report, which I know is a miracle for me. I spoke with Keith Curtis, the floodplain administrator, PPRBD. I know that Mr. Quinn has done some of this as well in the past. This is in regards to the issue between Mr. Nicholas and his neighbor. In a nutshell, according to Mr. Curtis, because the fence is permeable, that is, water can pass through. He doesn't believe it, although this isn't a legal decision, but he says he doesn't believe it would cause any more ice dam than occurs naturally if the fence were to redirect the flow of the water either upon entering or exiting Mr. Nicholas's property. Those are legal issues. But Mr. Nicholas can put a fence across the street, across the creek, for the protection of his property. Ultimately though, and this is according to our attorney as well, because I spoke with him, this is a civil issue. Mr. Nicholas's neighbor would be advised to get a professional opinion about how the damage is caused before she were to pursue this in a civil court. The board really doesn't have authority in this situation as the fence was put up so many years ago, perhaps even predating the fence ordinance, we don't know. I also received from Mr. Curtis a handout about stormwater management and its drainage issues affecting construction, but it addresses these issues with neighbor disputes as well. My copy is terrible, but I will ask Renee to print out the copy that I sent to her so that you all can have the same flyer that I have that just addresses some of these things like diversion. What do I have to deal with somebody else's water on my land and so forth. And I will be discussing the same item at Planning Commission. So that's our follow-up there, that ultimately this is going to be a civil matter. And that is my report. David, do you have anything?
No, nothing.
Tyler?
Regional building met last week, and the headline is that they're very, very busy.
Yes, indeed.
I attended the Parks Committee meeting on, was it last Thursday? Kind of early. And just the report from that committee is that the fishing line disposal tubes are being used, all 4 of them, some more than others. So that is certainly helping with the fishing line around the park.
I wanted to thank the Chamber of Commerce last night. The trunk or treat went really well. It was well attended, and thanks for the efforts, and to Joyland for hosting. And for those that are wondering, it's 7 to 2 in the middle of the 6th.
Thank you.
Cups.
Chris?
I was gonna digress too.
Chris, do you have a report?
I don't, thank you.
Mr.
Now I don't, no.
No.
Just go Cubs, right?
Yeah, go good.
Renee, do you have a report?
I do. So, a question that I've posed to a couple of you, just to make sure that we're following process and procedure, is, Mr. Pick's pay is above 5,000. So that would require board approval. Because you all have already approved his pay, does this need to be brought as, permission for you each time he gets paid, the amount that's been allocated to do so?
And my thought to that was no, it was approved, it was approved once, but we wanted to bring it to everybody.
I would tend to agree with you. We approved the contract at that rate. So I
Dollar
would
amount is written in the contract.
it's in there. That's what I think.
So she has an invoice, you can still take the 2 signatures, because that's what also happens whenever you approve the contract.
Right.
So don't everybody leave who needs to sign.
Okay.
Thank you. The other thing is, all of the audit adjustments have been made in assist, and it is done. It is done. So, everything looks good moving forward. We're putting things into QuickBooks. My request is that, I have a resource to go to and helping do that. Someone who understands fund accounting, so to make sure that those numbers that get put over are the numbers that are needed. We know that there's only one that needs to be reversed out so far. I am talking to Cindy, and so we have another conversation coming up regarding it. But do you all have any thoughts as to a resource that I can tap into? I really don't necessarily want to use Yvonne just because she doesn't necessarily understand the fund accounting process. But do you know someone who does, or someone you can put me in contact with?
I would suggest you look at the CML clerks list. And especially if you have any contact with Woodland Park, they're close and they've always been helpful. But that's all I know.
I would suggest DOLA as well, because they do the municipal financial database, and I think you probably need to reach out to their staffers probably by phone to find another small municipality that's using QuickBooks and see if they can be a resource to them.
All right, anything else? RJ, do you have a report?
No.
All right.
One,
What about Justin? He no longer with us?
Justin's no longer with us. He had some personal issues he had to take care of, so
Get somebody in,
hopefully, yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna be working on that.
So, just, if he is able to come up with somebody, what is the process, for him to backfill?
Well, we had given him permission already to test people on their equipment knowledge.
Do you know what you want in terms of backfill? Do you want to take the opportunity to change how the department is structured and staffed, or do you want to replace it with another part-time permanent?
Well, without knowing what the budget is for this, at this particular time, I don't know whether we're going to be able to have a full-time person, whether we want to have a full-time every other day, something like that. I mean, we can work that out, but I don't know where to go from there without knowing what type of money I have to use for that.
With the uncertainty that you just outlined, I'd encourage you to line up one or maybe 2 part-time temporary folks that you can grab onto very quickly.
Yeah, that was the original thought for the last.
Because I see the next few months, the next 6 weeks, if you don't have some extra resources available, it's going to be very burdensome. And so I think getting people engaged. And I think by keeping them at a part-time temporary, it gives you the option later to elevate them to another position. But if you hold off to wait to answer, they get a full-time.
Right, and that's
Maybe
what
too late.
that's what I figured I would gear, at least till the end of the year, toward to part-time.
And if you could gear somebody towards the plowing experience.
Yes.
Over the next.
I spoke with a previous employee of mine today, and he was willing to come in, like you said, like on an on-call basis. So that's great.
Okay,
Do we want, just because we lucked out in October with snow, which means November could be bad?
Is that how it works?
It's 60 degrees on Halloween, it's pretty much.
Do we want to delegate authority to hire on a part-time temporary basis, with coming back to the board to extend the temporary part to permanent or part to full or whatever?
is that a motion?
Yeah, I think so. I'd move to authorize John Pick to make a hiring decision in Public Works for a part-time temporary position to meet RJ's needs.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye. RJ, you have a question there? I can see the thoughts.
You're authorizing John Pick to hire an employee for me.
As the town manager,
Yeah.
he has the hiring authority.
Okay.
But you're
Y'all are
still
gonna work- y'all are gonna-
selecting.
Y'all are gonna work together.
You're gonna select them.
Yeah, it's up to you, but he gets
And
that.
he has the authority as
He's
the
been wanting to
town
put
manager.
Megan Prater for a while.
All right, board? If there's nothing further,
All right, I think I did it.
Well, I was just gonna let you know, I'm sorry, the roads are, all of the chemicals are put on, applicated. Now one of the roads is washed out, but other than that, we're done with that part of it.
okay, that's great. All right, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned at 8:22.
Oh, the Cubs just gave up 2 grand slams in a row.